Book 2 contains the infamous Catalogue of the ships. If you're like me, then reading this long list of captains and their peoples, the captains' fathers, their fathers' fathers, the places they came from, the ships they were on, and how many of them there were, etc., 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 was very boring for you and made you want to quit reading. Especially if you were reading this for fun, or if you were reading this for a class, then it made you at least want to skip ahead. I'm here to tell you that I've done both of those things at different times that I've read this book. However, hidden within these pages are stunning implications about the natures of the gods themselves, and that is something that you cannot skip if you're going to read the rest of this book and go on to read more of the great books. Luckily for you, though, all of this can be found well before the Catalogue of the Ships. Hello and welcome back. Not much happens plot-wise in Book 2, but there's still plenty of interesting things to talk about. We'll start with the plot summary, and then afterwards I'll do analysis and commentary. Zeus lies awake, plotting about how he can bring the will of Achilles to pass. He decides to send a dream to Agamemnon, which goes and encourages him to get up immediately and attack the walls of Troy, promising great glory and victory if he does so. After getting up, Agamemnon discloses both the dream and his plans to his captains in a meeting, then decides that he will test the regular soldiers' resolve. He calls the armies together and announces that he believes that they should go home, feigning despair that there's no point in staying longer and that they are sure to lose this war. To the disappointment of Agamemnon, all the other captains, and even some of the gods, the soldiers turn and immediately run to the ships, more than happy to go home after nearly 10 years of warfare. Athena, one of the goddesses, then comes down and inspires Odysseus, one of the Greek captains as well as her own chosen champion, to rally the troops and prevent them from leaving. He does so successfully, after which there are many rallying speeches given by the various kings and captains present. The rest of Book 2 is a long list of captains and soldiers and where they came from both the Greek side and the Trojan side. I'm going to back up for a minute. In Book 1, Apollo, the first god we really meet, clearly rewards the mortals that serve him and honor him, and despises and punishes the ones that hurt him or dishonor his followers, etc. This demonstrates a quid pro quo relationship between gods and men, as observed so far. You do something nice for me, I do something nice for you. You do something bad to me or my followers, and I will rain hellfire on you. It's been consistent so far. Next, when Athena prevents Achilles from killing Agamemnon, he complies, saying that the gods are quick to hear the prayers of the people who obey them. Consistent quid pro quo. But here, we see a change in the relationship. Zeus has sent Agamemnon a dream that is meant to be a deception. To our knowledge, Agamemnon has not done anything to wrong Zeus. Zeus even appears to like Agamemnon. Note the wording of the dream that he sends. Zeus has you in his heart. He pities you now and commands you to attack at once, full force, for now you can take the broad streets of Troy. The poet then goes on and says, he thought he would take the city of Priam that very day. The fool. How could he know what work the father had in mind? The father, still bent on plaguing the Argives and Trojans both with wounds and groans in the bloody press of battle. Furthermore, when he's testing the troops, Agamemnon references that Zeus bowed his head to promise that someday the Greek forces would overtake Troy. Based on these two factors, we might think that Zeus really likes Agamemnon and wants him to succeed. At a minimum, we can see that Agamemnon has not harmed Zeus or dishonored him in any way. We already know that Zeus cannot go against a promise that he makes with a bow of his head. But apparently, it's totally fine for him to be deceptive and to lie and to even be cruel along the way. This is definitely a complicating factor in the relationship between gods and men in this book. Whether you have a good relationship with them or not, or whether you've been promised something specific or not, they could lie to you, or worse. After all, think of the soldiers who are all about to die, at least many of them, because of how Zeus has chosen to honor Achilles, even though they are not to blame for what happened. Part of this might be mortals just being playthings of the gods, and the gods doing whatever they want with them. However, the gods are not necessarily completely in control either. They themselves are subservient to fate. Throughout the epic, we notice that fate is something that is above the gods, and it's something that they have to and force and respect, even when it goes against their wishes. We get our first example of this here in Book 2, when Agamemnon is testing the soldiers. And now they might have won their journey home, the men of Argos fighting the will of fate, if Hera had not alerted Athena. This is one of several scenarios in which something is about to happen that is against the will of fate, and the gods have to intervene to stop it from happening. They are not the arbiters of fate, but they are the enforcers of it, Zeus most of all. However, there is such a thing as free will. Even here. Notice that in the quote, it specifically says that the men might have made it home. They might have defied fate, but the gods prevented it from happening. We see later that the gods can be distracted or not be paying attention to what's going on, in which case, maybe fate can be defied. It's important to understand these relationships between the higher powers of the Iliad in order to understand it, but it's also important for understanding the rest of the great books, because we will see the answers to these questions change over time. The questions like, is there such a thing as fate? What is the relationship between gods and men like? Is there such a thing as free will? Etc. Homer definitely has more to say about these sorts of universal themes. And we'll leave it there. Tune in next week and we'll go over Book 3. Comment below and let me know if there's something that didn't make sense to you, if there's something you liked a lot, or if there's something that you wanted me to talk more about. It is okay to skip the catalog of the ships. See you next time.